My name is Peter Schardt, CTO of Siemens Healthineers, responsible for a large team, within, I think, a very impressive company, about 73,000 employees. Right? But, okay, my team is really starting from R&D, manufacturing of our key differentiating components, then doing the software to bring it to life, and ultimately now leverage AI really to put even more capability into everything we develop, we sell, and make it competitive and even more important, future-proof.
Interesting. And then for those unaware, large team size, global footprint, good brand recognition generally, I think. But in terms of disease states or areas of healthcare or medicine and the way you provide services, help drill that down a little bit more to give some more context.
So when we now really think about disease states, right? And if I look at the current state, because of the fragmentation, I think in the healthcare sector, there is a huge waste of resources, which creates dyssynergies, and we see actually also suboptimal patient outcomes, right? So we are committed at Siemens Healthineers to identify the waste and the slack and the waiting times in all of the processes, mainly for non-communicable diseases, right? And then by means of that, shrinking down the time virtually to zero, right? And we just talked about stroke, where you all actually have no other choice. You have 60 minutes to understand what's going on based on a trigger, which might be an emergency call, a symptom, or whatever kind of trigger. You have to really understand what is the situation. You have to diagnose. You have to make decisions, and then you really have to also then intervene. You really have to now change that state, whether that is, for example, a thrombectomy in the case of stroke. You have to all do this in 60 seconds, which is then basically, knowing about it and curing it in 60 seconds. And I think we are committed now really to proliferate that thinking into many other disease states as well.
Interesting, because when we think about improving efficiency within the healthcare space, like there's so many different areas you can do that in, be it on the administrative side or in the patient flow aspect, but then you got the clinical diagnostic element as well. We've got all the challenges of increasing burden of chronic disease, increasing patient requirements and expectations, but then on the other side we've got the reducing workforce and like these conflicting needs. In terms of how you go about, I guess, in that particular example, like how do you identify where the chunkiest bit of time is in terms of like when you think about if it's on the diagnostic side or helping the clinicians make a decision, that's like the part that I guess, historically clinicians might think, well, this is the area where I need to, allocate my years and years of training and the time, and you don't want to rush me in doing this, but I guess we've got a clock, to do that. How do you really apply technology to make sure you're doing it not just as effective, but hopefully even more effective compared to like the usual state?
So I think it's the most basic thing which creates that issue today is that the information, the bits and pieces of information which is created stays in silos, right? Yes. And just the communication, the transmission of that information to the right participants, that is still that's inefficiency that in many instances that leads to we have to create exactly that bit of information again, right?
Yeah, right,
so
right.
That is very simple. But I think these waiting times in between, which is at least we know it from our operational processes inside our company already, that this creates also a waste of resources in the system. But in particular, when it comes to the patients themselves, I think this is the most important thing, because just think about oncology. When you feel a lump or whatever, you get concerned, right? How long will it take, right, until a decision has been made and maybe a treatment is started? This is at least weeks, if not months. Then you collect secondary opinions, whatever. Now technology is able really to shrink that down we believe actually into one day, right? Because with AI and the access to these siloed information, now you have technology at hand to complement the experience, the scientific knowledge, let's say the learning from previous patients, all in a model, which then allows you then to guide the decision making in a very different way than it was in the past.
I know in the areas of oncology, radiology, and various diagnostic elements, the concept of utilizing AI is not something that just kind of magically came about when we all got really excited about large language models. It's something that in healthcare has existed for quite some time. Talk me through, though, like that kind of evolution and how you're utilizing AI across the different solutions, and maybe has there been a step change in this hype and excitement around large language models, or is it still, continuing to do what you do and deliver results as we know AI in healthcare has been achieving some of this for a while around machine learning and stuff. Yeah. Has there been a change?
Yeah. Well, actually, we are now at a point where this is dramatically changing. Right? We are in that business for 10 years, right? Yeah. Because of imaging, and images in healthcare have been digital for a very long time, right? It was only natural then to deploy, let's say, pattern recognition algorithms, which is basically mimicking what a radiologist is doing, right? But what is now happening is that you now can take data information from multiple very diverse sources, right, and combine this all in one, because a physician then does not make a decision only on the images, right?
Yes.
You need the patient context, you need pathologies, you need many more sources of information. Maybe you even take the data from your smartwatch or whatever, right? Combine all of this, and that now is such a big data game, which is very difficult to comprehend in, let's say, in a human brain, right? Because these patterns, which is not only imaging, they are very different and very diverse, right? And how these patterns then maybe invisibly correlate to a particular patient outcome, where you then can make the right decision to actually achieve this. This is now what really happens, and that is because just the models, we talk about the foundation models in the background, large language models is one particular, let's say, instance of it, but this now becomes very multidimensional, right? And that is exactly what healthcare needs, and since that is now technologically available and becoming mature, I believe we will see then also a dramatic change in these outcomes.
And since you've got that global awareness, we're here at Health Europe, there's probably delegates and representatives from health systems from around the world coming to check out the solutions and the conversations you're having with clients on a day-to-day. Do you find that regionally, across the world, there's different nuanced use cases or challenges? Because there's, you could take different paths with that, be it the regulatory side or just general acceptance and excitement. What does that look like on a global scale? And it's interesting seeing it in this melting pot of Europe and abroad. I'd love to get your perspectives on that.
And actually, that is exactly the case, right? And we are coming from a situation where we just had global products. An MRI scanner is an MRI scanner, right? Okay, you can sell it in China, in the US, in Europe, wherever, right? Maybe the most difference was what is the pricing level, right? But now with AI now coming into the game to be a primary value contributor as well. Now you recognize very different ecosystems, and it is not just also because patient anatomies may be even different, right? But in particular, the digital ecosystems are very different. We all know about China, right, and so on. But also, let's think about the Western world. The value systems maybe in Europe and the US, and so you have to be very cognizant about this. And that brings me to maybe the most important element of success. It is really teaming up locally with the large healthcare providers, and really build very long-lasting strategic partnerships where you not just come together for, let's do some clinical trial testing here, there, whatever, right, and obtain regulatory approval, right? But really developing jointly in really long-term relationships, together with, let's say, yeah, the large patient cohort, yeah, then really the values and benefits, yeah, because at the end of the day, what our beyond just providing good patient care, right? They also want to do cutting edge scientific research, whatever. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't translate the results into products, into applications, into software, whatever, right? It stays a scientific good result on paper, right? But it doesn't reach the patient care at scale, right? So there's a mutual benefit, from both sides.
When you were talking about R&D for an element, it kind of reminded me that I guess if I was a health system that was looking at investing in technology to be able to deploy some of these more technologically modern solutions to do, diagnostics at scale or whatever, however, leveraging AI to be able to do better patient care, you want to be able to invest in something that's, it's not going to be something that you're going to keep in the clinic or a hospital for 12 months. You want to be able to back a provider that you're working and partnering with for years and years in this rapid kind of changing world where technology is, evolving. You also don't want to kind of back the wrong horse, if you know what I mean. Like there's startups creating, all new, and every 6 months, the way that AI is being utilized is kind of is something you wouldn't have heard of or thought of maybe 2 years ago. What does that look like for you in terms of how, on your side, you're looking at, well, what's coming next and how do we kind of prepare so that we can continue to future-proof, as you said before, these clinics and hospitals to be able to deliver patient care in new technology worlds?
Since I talked already about multidimensional sources of data and also multidimensional ways of processing that information with AI, we believe in very diverse ecosystems, which then really drive a joint purpose, which we believe is either both it's both the outcome for the patient, but also it is the efficiency of the system, right?
Yeah.
And then we invite startups, academia, public sector as well, to join us. And for example, think about a disease state like now Alzheimer's, also, right?
Sure.
There is no other means of teaming up for a medtech company with pharma, right? In order to understand with academia what is the disease, what is the disease progression, because at the end of the day, the treatment is most likely a medication, right? And now really how to what you're learning with imaging, with pathological data, right? And joining also the, let's say, the research for the pharma companies in their clinical trials, and how can then our products play a role in this? It's always an ecosystem now, right?
Yes.
There is not one company having the holy grail and knowing how to do this. So that's why we are, in particular, at stage a couple of minutes ago, talked about Umbrella, which is a very large-scale consortium, dedicated to stroke, But yes, we are leading with, let's say, our partner from the provider side is Walter Bronn, I think, but we're inviting all other companies, small, large companies, to join us on that bandwagon. Because that brings me back to let's say the first statement I made. It is about the connection of the data, the transmission, the sharing of the information, right? And here we need all the participants.
Yeah, we do. Hey, lastly, I did catch part of your session on the big green stage in there, which was great. What would you hope that anything else that attendees who caught that session or just generally here at Health Europe would take away from some of those discussions that were had today?
What I would like to see as a CTO of such a large company, right, that we see now, let's say, a convergence of the real world and the digital world, right? And because healthcare is a sector where it's always about real patients, and you have to intervene to make a real change of state. But how does now the digital world now help us, for example, and it's a term we use very strongly, as a digital twin, helps you understanding, making the right decisions, right? So everybody who is also being fascinated about that concept, that there might always be in the future state, a digital twin shadowing us, where we understand, what is basically the impact, our behavior, whatever. But in particular, when it comes to severe conditions, right, it doesn't depend anymore on, hey, what physician are you basically by accident talking to, right? But it is based on real found information and knowledge. What is then the next step? Because then you receive healthcare, which is really based on, let's call it a global knowledge in medicine, rather than the personal experience of one physician you by accident maybe are facing.